1. Crucifixion. Crucifixion was one of the most infamous methods of execution used by the Romans, especially during the time of Jesus Christ. This punishment involved nailing or tying a person to a large wooden cross. The victim would often be stripped of their clothes and publicly displayed, which added to the humiliation. Once on the cross, the person would hang there for hours or even days. Death could come from various causes, including loss of blood, dehydration, or asphyxiation, difficulty breathing. The process was extremely painful and slow, as the weight of the body would pull down on the arms and chest, making it hard to breathe. Crucifixion was not just a way to kill someone. It was also a method of instilling fear in others. By executing criminals in such a public manner, the Romans aimed to deter others from committing similar crimes. It served as a warning that severe punishments awaited those who defied Roman law. The most famous case of crucifixion is that of Jesus Christ, whose death is central to Christian beliefs. His crucifixion is remembered as an act of sacrifice for humanity's sins. Over time, crucifixion became less common as societies evolved and began to seek more humane forms of punishment. Today, it is viewed as a symbol of extreme suffering and injustice. 2. Drawing and quartering. Drawing and quartering was one of the most brutal punishments in medieval England, primarily reserved for those found guilty of treason. This punishment consisted of several horrifying steps designed to maximize suffering and serve as a public spectacle. First, the condemned person was hanged until nearly dead but not completely. This was known as hanging in chains. After this, they were taken down and disemboweled, meaning their internal organs were removed in a gruesome manner. Next came beheading, where the person's head was severed from their body with a sword or axe. Finally, the body was cut into 4 parts. This process is where the term quartering comes from. Each part was often displayed in different locations around the city or town as a warning to others about the consequences of treasonous acts against the crown. This punishment was intended not only to punish the individual, but also to instill fear in anyone who might consider betraying their country. It served as a public demonstration of the power of the monarchy and the seriousness with which they treated treason. While drawing and quartering was officially abolished in England in 1870, its legacy remains one of extreme cruelty and serves as a reminder of how justice was often administered in earlier times. 3. Ling Chi, slow slicing. Ling Chi, also known as slow slicing, was an execution method used in China that became infamous for its extreme cruelty and prolonged suffering. This punishment was reserved for serious crimes such as treason or murder and was meant to serve as both a form of retribution and a public spectacle. The process involved slowly slicing away at the victim's body over an extended period rather than killing them quickly. The executioner would begin by making small cuts on various parts of the body, gradually increasing in severity. This method allowed for maximum pain while prolonging life for as long as possible. Victims could suffer for hours or even days before finally succumbing to their injuries or shock. Ling Chi was not only about inflicting pain, but also about humiliating the condemned person in front of an audience. The practice aimed to demonstrate the power of imperial authority while deterring others from committing similar crimes. Ling Chi was officially abolished in China in 1905 due to growing criticism from both domestic reformers and foreign observers who viewed it as barbaric. Today, it stands as one of history's most notorious forms of execution, symbolizing extreme cruelty and reflecting how societies have changed over time regarding justice and human rights. 4. Scaphism. Scaphism was an ancient Persian method of execution that exemplified extreme cruelty and psychological torture. The condemned person would be trapped between 2 boats or hollowed-out tree trunks that were close together but not touching each other. They would be forced into this confined space with their arms and legs sticking out while being unable to escape. To make matters worse, they were force-fed milk and honey, which caused severe diarrhea and made them very sick. The milk and honey would also attract insects like flies and ants, which would swarm over them due to their exposed skin. This created an unbearable situation where they could not escape from their filth or from being bitten by insects. As time passed, victims would suffer from dehydration, infections, and exposure to harsh weather conditions while trapped in this horrific state. Death could take days or even weeks to occur, making scaphism one of the most agonizing forms of execution ever devised. This method served multiple purposes. It punished those deemed guilty while also acting as a public spectacle meant to instill fear among others about what could happen if they broke important laws. Scaphism highlights how ancient cultures sometimes resorted to gruesome methods for maintaining order within society. 5. Poena culiae. Poena culiae was a unique form of punishment used in ancient Rome specifically for those convicted of parricide, the act of killing one's parent. This punishment reflected Roman society's deep respect for familial bonds and its severe condemnation of such heinous acts. The process involved sewing the condemned person into a leather sack along with several live animals. Typically included were a dog, symbolizing loyalty, a snake, representing treachery, a monkey, denoting foolishness, and sometimes other creatures like roosters or cats. Once sealed inside this sack with these animals, which would likely fight each other out of fear or panic, the sack would then be thrown into water, usually a river or sea, to drown. The horror of Poena culiae lay not only in its brutality but also in its symbolism. It was meant to convey that killing one's parents was an act so vile that it warranted an equally grotesque punishment. This method served both as retribution against the perpetrator and as a deterrent for others who might consider similar actions against their family members. While Poena culiae may have been infrequently carried out compared to other punishments, its existence highlights how seriously Roman law regarded familial relationships and how far society would go to uphold these values. 6. Boiling to death. Boiling to death was an official method of execution used in England during certain periods for particularly heinous crimes like murder or poisoning. This gruesome punishment involved placing the condemned person into a large pot filled with boiling liquid, often water or oil, until they died from severe burns or shock. The process began by heating the liquid until it reached boiling point before lowering the victim into it. In some cases, they might be tied up or restrained so they could not escape from this horrific fate. Witnesses often gathered around to watch this brutal spectacle unfold. It served both as entertainment for some and as a grim reminder for others about what could happen if they broke serious laws. Boiling alive inflicted excruciating pain on the victim, while also creating an atmosphere of fear among those who witnessed it or heard about it afterward. It emphasized how seriously society viewed certain crimes at that time. Although boiling to death became less common over time due to growing humanitarian concerns about such cruel methods, it remained part of England's legal history until it was officially abolished in 1547 under King Edward VI's reign, when more humane forms of punishment began gaining acceptance. 7. Execution by elephant. Execution by elephant was a unique form of capital punishment practiced primarily in South Asia and Southeast Asia during ancient times through medieval periods. Elephants were trained specifically for this purpose. They became powerful symbols not only because they were large animals, but also due to their intelligence and strength. In this method, the condemned person would be brought before large crowds who had gathered to witness this public spectacle. The elephant would then crush or dismember them using its massive feet or tusks, methods that were both terrifyingly effective yet highly visible for all present at such executions. This form served multiple purposes. It punished individuals found guilty while simultaneously entertaining spectators who might view it as part of sport rather than just punishment alone. Additionally, executing someone via elephant highlighted authority over life itself, showcasing both power dynamics between rulers/subjects along with societal norms regarding justice at that time. Though execution by elephant fell out of favor over centuries due to largely changing attitudes toward humane treatment within legal systems around the world today, it remains an interesting example of how cultures have utilized animals with the inconti of xt capital punishment throughout history. 8. Impalement. Impalement is one of history's most gruesome methods of execution, involving solving by driving a sharp stake through various parts of a victim's body, often starting at one end, like through their rectum, and exiting through another part, like their mouth. This method caused immense pain while allowing victims to remain alive for long periods before finally succumbing due to either shock/injury inflicted upon them during the ordeal itself. Impalement has been documented across different cultures throughout history but gained particular notoriety during medieval Europe when rulers used such tactics against enemies during wars/insurrections. serving both punitive measures against traitors as well as psychological warfare against opposing forces. Victims were often displayed publicly after execution. Their bodies left hanging on display acted deterrent to others who might consider rebellion against ruling powers. This form emphasized not only the brutality inherent within legal systems at the time, but also societal attitudes towards justice itself, showcasing willingness to go to extreme lengths to maintain order within communities. While impalement has long since been abolished worldwide today, it remains a stark reminder of how far humanity has inflicted suffering upon those deemed guilty of their wrongdoing. 9. Keel hauling. Keel hauling was a brutal naval punishment used primarily during the Age of Sail on ships across Europe's oceans. Sailors who committed offenses, ranging from minor infractions like disobedience to serious crimes such as mutiny, could face this terrifying ordeal. To carry out the keel hauling procedure involved tying up sailors before dragging them underneath the ship's keel, the bottom part. This action often resulted in drowning due to lack of air while submerged beneath the vessel. However, even sailors vet ordeal. They faced serious injuries caused by sharp barnacles clinging to the whole ship. Keel hauling served a dual purpose, punishing individuals while also instilling fear among crew members who witnessed the event unfold. It acted deterrent against misbehavior on board vessels where discipline was crucial in maintaining order during long voyages across treacherous waters. While keel hauling eventually fell out of favor due to growing awareness regarding the humane treatment of sailors, it remains a fascinating example of how maritime cultures dealt with issues of authority/punishment during times when life at sea could be incredibly harsh. 10. Blood eagle. The blood eagle is one of history's most chilling methods of execution associated with Viking culture during medieval Scandinavia. This brutal technique involved cutting the victim's back before pulling ribs away from the spine, creating wings resembling those of an eagle, a symbolic gesture that didn't show the ruthlessness Viking warriors possessed. Victims were typically tied down so they couldn't escape while undergoing this horrific procedure, which inflicted immense pain and over an extended period of time. After ribs are pulled apart, lungs might be pulled out through openings created, ultimately leading to slow death due to the shock/injury inflicted upon them through the ordeal itself. Blood eagle served multiple purposes, punishing enemies while simultaneously sending messages regarding the strength and dominance of Viking culture. While accounts vary regarding actual instances of blood eagle being performed, it remains a potent symbol of brutality associated with warfare during an era when violence often defined relationships between tribes/nations. The blood eagle has long since been abandoned by modern societies. It stands testimony to humanity's capacity for city cruelty towards one another throughout history.